In this video, we'll be taking a look at the top 10 best Black Series figures from the last 10 years! Videos on the Scruffy-Looking Nerf Hoarder channel are intended for audiences of 13 and above. Hey guys, it's the Scruffy-Looking Nerf Hoarder back again for another video, and welcome to my channel where I like to talk about and review Star Wars toys that have been released over the years. And in today's video, we're talking about Star Wars, the Black Series figures. Now, these figures have been around for, believe it or not, 10 years. This is the first ever Black Series figure I picked up in 2013. This is Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing outfit. And since that figure, we've had absolutely hundreds of figures released. There's been so many, it's been hard to keep up. And if you are one of those completionists, I salute you, sir. Well done. You'll see some of my collection in a lot of my videos up here. Back when I picked up the Luke Skywalker figure, I thought that this line would maybe last one or two waves, but it's amazing to see how far it's gone and how big it's got. Now, like any good collector, I've got some of my favourite figures that have been released and some of my least favourite figures. Ew. So I've decided to put together a list of my top 10 favourite Black Series figures. Now when I say top 10, it's changed since editing this video. I decided to make it the top 13 because it's been so difficult because there's just so many amazing figures out there. Now this list is just a personal preference list. There's no right or wrong answer to this, but this is just my favourite figures. And I base my own decision on just a gut feeling by playing and looking at the figure. So with particular figures, I think they look really accurate to what you see on screen, and that really makes me enjoy the figure more. And then if they have great articulation, if they're easy to pose, then that's another plus as well. So this is what I've based my list on. I've managed to get down to 13 with a few honourable mentions as well. Sorry, it's going to be a long video, but I had to get these figures in there because there's some really great figures, and if you haven't got any of these, I definitely recommend picking them up. Let's go to number 1 on the list, or should that be number 13? Let's go to number 13 on the list. The first figure we're looking at is Darth Vader from The Empire Strikes Back. Now to me, this is the best Darth Vader Black Series figure that's been released. The articulation is great, and it looks so accurate to what we saw in The Empire Strikes Back. The cloth material on the figure really does enhance the look, and overall, it's a wonderful looking figure. The next figure on my list is Bossk. Now this is an older figure, so the articulation isn't as great as what we see in today's figures, but this figure looks amazing. There's some real great details on this figure, but what makes it is the dual articulation. It is great that they went to that much detail in the mouth, and this figure just looks so cool. I'm hoping at some point in the future we do get a new Bossk figure with greater articulation, then we can get those dynamic poses. But for now, this figure is one of the best looking figures that I've got on my shelf. Next on the list is Count Dooku, and what a great figure. This thing has one of the best face sculpts I've ever seen in a Black Series figure. The only Black Series figure to come with a swooshing lightsaber as well, and this thing looks epic. I don't know why they've not continued this, because I'd love every lightsaber figure to have this option. This figure doesn't have the best articulation, but when you compare it to other brands, like the Figure Arts version, you can definitely see how great the quality is on this figure. Now, I'm sure I'm being a little biased by adding this one to the list because this is my favourite trooper from Return of the Jedi, but I had to get it in there because this figure is great. The mud detail on the boots is fantastic, and for an older figure, it really does have some great articulation. This figure originally came with the speeder bike, but since then has been released as part of the archive line, and the 40th anniversary of the Return of the Jedi. Next on my list is Snowspeeder Luke. Now, I love Mark Hamill, but he's got one of those faces that is impossible to capture in plastic. Over the years, many people have tried and many people have failed. But I think the face sculpt on this figure is incredible. The body itself has some great details on there. Luke Skywalker's jacket in particular looks really well sculpted. There's some great lines in there, and it looks fantastic on my shelf. Definitely an underrated figure, but I think it's one of the best. Next up on the list is Obi-Wan Kenobi from the Clone Wars, but not the Clone Wars you're thinking about. I'm talking about the animated series before the Clone Wars TV show. And the main reason this figure's on the list is all about the head sculpt. This is the best Ewan McGregor head sculpt we've ever seen, and I think it's fantastic. It looks so nice. There's some great colours in the cheeks. The hair looks impressive. I'm so surprised they haven't reused this head on other figures because it's just perfect. This figure uses a clone body, so it's not got the greatest articulation, but with the fabric attached as well, it looks really, really incredible. It really does look great on your shelf. Next on the list is the Return of the Jedi Boba Fett Deluxe figure. This figure is incredible. He looks so great. It's a shame there's not more wear and tear on the legs, but actual sculpt wise, it looks super cool. This is my favourite Boba Fett figure that we've got in the line, and it looks really, really great. I'm a massive Boba Fett fan, so I had to include him on the list. Next on the list is the Hoth Trooper. And why is this on the list? Well, this is a great design feature. The fact that they had not one great face, but two great face sculpts, and we can interchange them to make so many different troopers. The goggles were removable, the scarf was removable. This thing is amazing. You can make so many different troopers. So I think I've got about 8 or 9 in my collection, and I'm probably going to pick up more before I'm finished. This is a great figure to pick up, and it looks so, so cool. Definitely recommend this figure. Next on the list is the Ahsoka Tano figure from The Mandalorian. What can I say about this figure? It looks almost perfect. And I really like the articulation, especially the way they've hidden the articulation in the knees under the sculpt of the figure. Next up on the list is Bo-Katan, and what a great looking figure. The helmet and armour have some great details in there, but what's really great about this figure is the head sculpt. Hasbro did a great job on the face sculpt in this figure. I can really see Katie Sackhoff when I look at this toy. The articulation's great, the paint apps are great, the character's great, she's a Mandalorian, and she's great to pose. Next up on my list is the Death Watch Mandalorian figure. Now this figure has no right to be this high on this list. I've got no personal attachments to it. It's not from my favourite movie, and there's nothing nostalgic about it. Yet with all that said, this is one of the best figures to pose. No matter what you do with this figure, it seems to look amazing. If I bend his leg in one way, it just looks perfect. That is why this is so high on the list. And I really do like the fact that it looks like there is someone in the figure. The armour looks a bit bigger. You can see the helmet looks a bit bigger on that figure. The shoulder pads look like they can be detached. It's such a great looking figure. Definitely recommend this one. If you haven't picked it up already, why not? Pick it up now. Number 2 on my list is the Gamorrean Guard from Return of the Jedi. While putting this video together, this is the one I struggled with the most because this figure was going to be number 1 for so long until I finally was editing the video together, and I had to put it at number 2 just because the first one was slightly better. But man, this figure is so great. You know I love Return of the Jedi, it's my favourite movie, so the Gamorrean Guard was one of my favourite toys growing up. Seeing this figure in 6-inch form, it does not disappoint. This is a deluxe figure, but it does come with 3 separate weapons, so you can really get 3 different looks from this figure. The articulation is great, and I love the fact that you can open that mouth. You can really get some great expression from this figure. You open it up wide, it really does look like he's shocked. It's a wonderful looking toy. And this is one of the best examples of cloth goods being used on a figure, because the skirt looks fantastic. And I'd say this is one of the most screen accurate figures, and I particularly like all the colours that are in the face. Before we go to number 1, let's take a look at some honourable mentions that almost made the list. First of all, the San Diego Comic-Con Boba Fett in Kenner colours. As someone who grew up in the 80s, this was my favourite toy, and seeing it replicated in 6-inch was absolutely amazing. The colouring on this figure is great, and it really does stand out on a shelf. This Princess Leia figure from Hoth is easily the best head sculpt from Princess Leia. The face sculpt really does remind me of Carrie Fisher, so I almost included this figure because I love Princess Leia. But unfortunately, she just didn't quite make the list. Sorry, Princess. And as a massive Return of the Jedi fanboy, I had to include Lando in his disguise outfit because it's a great look, it's a great figure, and the helmet is super cool. And number 1 on the list is the Stormtrooper from the Mandalorian series. For years in the Black Series line, we always had a Stormtrooper figure, and I was always really happy with it. Until recently, they released the Mandalorian Stormtrooper figure, and then it completely blew my mind. This is so much better. It's really night and day. First of all, the look of the figure, the shininess on this figure is great. It really does look like that plastic that we saw in the movie. And the helmet itself looks really, really great. A lot smaller than the helmet that we saw a few years before. and that really does reinforce that there's someone wearing this helmet. It does look like there's someone in a suit rather than it being a figure of a stormtrooper. The figure has great articulation and you can really get some dynamic poses. For me, Star Wars is about iconic imagery, and there's nothing more iconic than the stormtrooper. And that's why this figure is number 1 on my list. So that was my list. Let me know in the comments below what your list is. And is it similar to mine? Is there some amazing figures that I've missed off completely? Now, this list I based on what things I own. So things like the Darth Maul from Clone Wars, I haven't included because I just don't have them. And I'd like to only review a figure if I have it in hand and I know exactly what it feels like and what it looks like. But I know there's some amazing figures that I've never picked up. So let me know in the comments below what is your favourite Black Series figure. And until next time, guys, may the foam-flinging force be with you. Greetings, Exalted One. As a token of my goodwill, I present to you these 2 videos. Both are about Star Wars weapons and will serve you well. Until next time, may the foam-flinging force be with you.